Netanyahu asks Red Cross to aid hostages in Gaza as families warn against expanding war. August 3, 2025, Jerusalem. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has appealed to the International Committee of the Red Cross ICRC to intervene on behalf of the hostages still held in Gaza, as public pressure intensifies and families of the captives warn that ongoing military operations could jeopardize their loved ones' lives. Netanyahu's appeal was made during a meeting with Red Cross officials in Jerusalem on Friday, where he urged the organization to gain access to the hostages, provide medical aid, and verify their condition after nearly 10 months of captivity. There is a basic humanitarian obligation to check on these individuals and ensure their safety, Netanyahu said in a statement. We demand that the Red Cross do everything in its power to assist in this critical mission. The plea comes as Israel continues its military campaign in Gaza, targeting Hamas and other militant factions responsible for the October 7 attack, which left over 1,200 Israelis dead and led to the abduction of more than 240 people. While several hostages have been released in earlier deals, over 120 remain unaccounted for. Families of the hostages, many of whom have become vocal activists, expressed growing concern that Israel's deepening military campaign could diminish chances for a negotiated release. At a protest in Tel Aviv, some relatives warned of an expanding war that could further endanger the hostages. We are terrified that military escalation is putting our family members at greater risk, said Miriam Cohen, whose daughter was taken on October 7. We need diplomacy, not just force. We need a deal, not a wider war. The Hostage Families Forum, a central advocacy group, has called for an immediate pause in hostilities to allow negotiations mediated by Qatar, Egypt, and the U.S. to resume. They argue that only through a ceasefire and a credible framework for talks can the hostages be safely returned. International efforts to broker a deal have intensified in recent weeks, with U.S. and Egyptian officials reportedly exploring phased ceasefire options that include humanitarian aid deliveries, release of certain categories of hostages, and broader de-escalation measures. Despite mounting domestic and global pressure, Netanyahu has remained firm that any long-term ceasefire must be contingent on the dismantling of Hamas's military capabilities. Critics argue that such conditions delay potential deals and increase the risk to hostages. The Red Cross, for its part, reiterated its willingness to engage, but noted that its access to hostages depends on the cooperation of armed groups in Gaza. We continue to seek access to all hostages to ensure their welfare, a spokesperson said.